Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast, The Next Best Bet, in the line, how did you hear about Podgo, when you sign up. Now, on to episode 72 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always. We did not have games in episode 71, so there's no hindsight with Higgins recapping how we did with those. There is some games for episode 72. We have some baseball, some hockey, and basketball's back, Brett.
Lots of sports are back. Playoffs are back underway. And it was a nice pause to reflect on what's important in life.
Yes, it was. We're going to go into Beginner's Boulevard before we give out some picks, and we're going to talk about alternate lines. Now, an alternate line is if you pick a different spread than what the books are setting it at. So let's look at, for example, the Houston Rockets versus Oklahoma City Thunder game that's going on Monday. That spread is the Rockets favored -6 points. Now, if you were to really think the Rockets are going to win or something, and you took the Rockets -8, or you took Thunder +4 instead or something like that, you'd get better odds because you are working against the book and working against the lines that they're setting out.
Yeah, it's just a way for the sports books to provide more options for the bettors out there.
It really is. Let's jump into our NBA now, Brett. And before we talk about Monday's games, Marcus Morris on Sunday, third ejection in 6 playoff games. That's troubling.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what he was doing, right? He's trying to beat up on Luka Doncic. I don't know. 3-6 is all is a problematic number. So if you're a daily fantasy guy, you probably want to stay away from Marcus Morris this postseason. He's not finishing too many games.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart plan there. Luca and Morris, they both ran into each other a few times during that series. One game, Luca's foot was stepped on and his shoe came right off his foot. Next game, Morris came down and swatted rather aggressively when Doncic was going to the basket, and that's what caused the flagrant 2 foul and the ejection on Sunday.
Yeah, and I'd say the refs probably got it right. There was a wind up. Didn't really look like he was going for the basketball there. So I think they got that call right.
I agree. Hopefully Luka's okay. The Mavericks did not finish to excuse me. The Mavericks did not win, so the series ends and the Clippers advance on to the next round of the playoffs. But we do have some other games going on Monday that are going to either be in the first round or be a semifinal matchup. The Milwaukee Bucks Miami Heat game, that's going to be a second round matchup.
Yeah, Miami currently 5.5 point dogs, but they did take 2 of 3 from Milwaukee during the regular season, Higgins. So that might be an interesting trend to watch.
It is Milwaukee at -5.5 based off of how well they were playing against Orlando. I think that's a little bit of a low number. I'd say I'm leaning the Bucks there. But Jimmy Butler and that Heat team, they seem like they're on a mission. So I think I'm going to watch game 1 for fun and try to get my bearings on where this series is going to go. However, I am going to be on the Houston Rockets versus Oklahoma City Thunder game because this is a game 6. The Thunder need it to force a game 7. And I've been excited by this entire series, Brett. I think it's going to go to 7 games. So I'm going to take OKC on the money line plus 200.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. OKC's last game has me very nervous. 80 points, Higgins? 80
Mm-hmm.
points in today's NBA? This isn't the 1970s, where that's like, oh wow, they scored 80. They might have won. No, we're looking at games like, 104 to 110 range usually. And they were about 20 plus points off of that pace.
Yeah, part of the reason for that is Russell Westbrook is finally back for the Rockets now. And he played 24 minutes, only had 7 points, but a plus 21 point differential while he was on the court. He played really well and 6 rebounds, 7 assists. That's part of just what Russell can do, especially when he's not going to score on a given night. He can distribute really well. So Russell Westbrook does worry me there, but the way that like Dennis Schroeder, uh, Gallinari, Chris Paul, Gilgis Alexander, they've played really well against this Rockets team. I don't know if they're going to win the series in 7, but I think it's going to go to 7.
Okay, if Lou Dortz doesn't go 0 for 9 from 3, I think you'll have a better chance too. So, hopefully, there's some positive regression there for you.
Yeah, Luke Dort, 3 for 16 from the floor, 0 for 9 from 3, like you said. That's a rough night.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the Kobe mentality. Like he'll go 0 for 30 before he goes 0 for 8. But at some point, just drive or pass or something, man. Like some change it up a little bit.
And then also on Sunday night, when we are doing this podcast recording, there was a line out for the Boston Celtics Toronto Raptors game. This is an interesting line. Toronto's minus 1.5 early. This is a game for Tuesday night, though, so there's going to be a full 24 hours to move this spread along. Brett, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I was really impressed with Boston in game one. They looked dominant from start to finish in that one. There was a little run, I want to say, in the second quarter where Boston had some turnover issues and Toronto looked like they might be able to get back into the game, but they really never cut it closer than 9 points. So I want to say Toronto's going to bounce back because I have a lot of faith in that team, but I'm staying away from this one right now. I just don't really have a good feel for it.
Yeah, I'm staying away from it right now as well. Like you said, Boston did get the game one win, 112 to 94. They are the underdogs right now. They're being given 1.5 points on the spread, and they're plus 100 on the money line. So there's some good value for the early leaders in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to back Boston, now's the time to do it while there's still plus money, I bet.
Let's jump into some money line magic though, because Brett, on the golf course this weekend, it was a rough go at the BMW Championship. -4. 4 under. That is what the winning score was, but there were two guys there, so it was a playoff.
Yeah, well, it had to be an amazing finish for us to go to the golf course for Moneyline Magic. I think that's a first.
It's
Episode
definitely a first.
71, we have a first, Higgins?
Episode 72, we have a
72.
first with some golf.
There
But
we
this story is absolutely worth it. I mean, DJ drains an amazing double breaker of a putt on 18 to force a playoff, and then they go and they play hole 18 again, and John Rahm drains a 66 footer. The break on this thing was absolutely insane. The amount it went from left to right, and he got a birdie. Dustin Johnson got a par, and John Rahm wins the BMW Championship.
on a 66-foot putt. Not a bad way to take it home. I almost want to go back to the DJ putt because that one broke about 3 or 4 times, and then somehow, some way, John Rahm, I guess, ups him on the next hole. He hit the winner. Like, oh my God, what a finish!
What's the saying? Drive for show, putt for dough.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. These two guys on those last two holes put on a putting clinic with those reads.
Yes, they did. Both played well on the day as well. John Rahm shot a 64. He was 3 strokes back of Dustin Johnson to start the day and shot a 6 under 64 just to even get into contention for this playoff. That's impressive.
Yeah, no, I mean, talk about playing your best. And, he still takes home a decent purse, so I'm not going to feel too bad for him.
Yeah, Rahm takes 1.7 million, Dustin Johnson a little over a million, so not as bad getting second place when you're still bringing home $1 million check.
Yeah, it's hard to cry over that spilt milk when when your spilt milk's still $1 million.
Well, we'll see who's going to be laughing and who's going to be crying on Monday because it's the MLB trade deadline, Brett.
I know, and you would have thought if you were a Padres fan, the deadline was this weekend because they've made three moves, adding Trevor Rosenthal to the bullpen, Mitch Moreland to their lineup, and John Castro from the Angels to add some depth behind home plate. The Moreland trade sticks out the most to me, Higgins, because in certain pitching matchups, that dude definitely brings some pop to the lineup. And the Padres have enough pop, honestly, without him.
And then the San Diego Padres, they're not even done because Jeff Passan of ESPN's reporting that they might also be working to get Austin Nola, the catcher slash first baseman from Seattle. So still not sleeping on the West Coast from the Padres. They're still hard at work, it sounds.
Yeah, and they actually play the Colorado Rockies on Monday, and the Rockies added to their bullpen, picking up Michael Givens, who I don't think he was closing games in Baltimore this year, but had in previous seasons. And obviously ERAs go up playing in Colorado, but he's a big strikeout pitcher. So I think that was a nice move for the Rockies, who were actually over 500 at this point. Kind of a surprise.
It'll be interesting to see who are going to be sellers and who are going to be buyers. The Rangers, Lance Lynn, Joey Gallo are some names that are being mentioned to be traded around. Rangers could very well be sellers. The Dodgers, they said they're not really interested in taking on any 1 year loans. Anyone that they'd look at would be contracted beyond the 2020 season. Their names have been like Mike Clevenger, Lance Lynn, Josh Hader. They're looking for some help on the mound potentially, but overall, all those guys are contracted beyond 2020, so it wouldn't be something that's short term like you would see with some of these other teams.
Yeah, and Clevenger's another interesting name. I saw some rumors to the White Sox for a Michael Kopech type deal, and I mean, wouldn't that be weird to trade two big time arms within your division? So that would be something to keep an eye on. Lance Lynn has been really good for the Texas Rangers this year. I think if a team is fortunate enough to add him, he will be a difference maker at the deadline. Probably the best pitcher to get moved at the deadline this year if he's moved.
And then Mike Clevenger, he was one of those two pitchers with the Cleveland Indians that was caught going out, breaking the COVID regulations that the MLB has in place. And so he got suspended, and so did Zach Plesac, the other pitcher, who's actually not on the Indian squad right now. He was told by the manager that there's not a place for him on the roster right now. Could we maybe
Right.
see him get moved, considering he was having a very strong year before those antics derailed his season?
Yeah, no, Clevenger, excuse me, Zach Plesac. Yeah, that was I bet that like Instagram video didn't help his cause very much.
No. How do you feel some of these trade deadline rumors are going to affect the lines for tomorrow's games, and how are you using this to determine what games you're going to be on?
Well, I definitely think there will be some late scratches tomorrow, so we don't have too many early bets on the baseball slate for us, but one of the teams I'm looking at is the Boston Red Sox. They have been an underachieving team this year, so I would not expect their strongest lineup on the field tomorrow if they're trying to make some moves, Higgins.
Yes, and they are facing off against the Atlanta Braves. We don't have a line for this game as we are recording this, but we do have some prospective pitchers. Max Fried is expected to be on the mound for the Braves, and he is 5 and 0 this season, 1.35 ERA. Meanwhile, the Red Sox, they're expected to have Colton Brewer on the mound. He's 0 and 2 and has an ERA of 4.57. So it might just seem to be a battle of who's on the mound, and I'd trust Fried a lot more. So I'd say I'm leaning him money line for the Braves, but I'm very cautious of where that line's going to turn up to be.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that thinking for sure. I think, if it's something that you're super confident in, you might back it anyway. Maybe you find a parlay partner. Maybe I have the team to parlay it with for you, Higgins.
I don't know
Lucas.
about that. We're on opposite sides.
Oh, well, hold on. Lucas Giolito threw a no hitter last game. And I
Yes.
expect him to regress down to the norm, Higgins, going up against that Minnesota lineup. So I think Minnesota could be a team to watch tomorrow, and I will be on the money line when the lines come out. They might be a little nice parlay partner for your Braves there.
So let me just get this on the record. You don't think Lucas Giolito's going to have back-to-back no-hitters?
I might bet on that too. No, I think it's one of those things. He's just, we've seen pitchers come out after their no hitters, and some have stayed sharp, and some have not looked very good. Now, Lucas Giolito only threw 101 pitches in his no hitter, so it wasn't one of those things where he was, over 110, 120 pitches, but it's probably more pitches than he's thrown in any other game this year. And I just think you're going to come back down to the norm. His whip is north of 1. Now it's 1.008, but north of 1, still a fact. And if you're letting a batter on an inning, Minnesota has enough pop in their lineup to put two or three of those guys home.
Just a quick note about Giolito, though. His start before he had his complete game no-hitter was a shutout win against Detroit, where he pitched 7 innings, and in both of his last 2 starts, he had 13 strikeouts. This sounds like someone that might be riding a little bit of a hot hand, so we'll see. We'll
He
see how it
may he
goes.
may be in his zone, but you also said he played Detroit and he threw his no hitter against Pittsburgh. I think
Yes, he did.
Minnesota's a bit of a step up from those teams, with all due respect.
Yes, we'll see where those lines do come out, though. But right now, we both like the Braves and the Twins money line, Brett. Maybe that'll turn into a nice parlay. Let's talk about the game that you and I disagree on, though. Tampa Bay Rays versus the New York Yankees.
I'll let you go first because part of this is about my Mets, and I don't want to interrupt you, so I'll let you go first and tell me why you're on the Yankees here.
So I'm on the Yankees basically because they have to turn it around after their performance against the Mets, and they did get a 2-1 win to end that series on a bit of a higher note. And meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Rays, they played the Miami Marlins, who I understand have overperformed off their expectations, but it's still the Marlins. Tampa Bay, New York, it's in New York, and we got Garrett Cole on the mound. I mean, Garrett Cole on the mound against Tyler Glass now, I'm going to take Garrett Cole. So I'm taking New York Yankees minus 150.
Okay, so I understand all of that. I'll say this: Edwin Diaz, as a New York Met, has 10 blown saves, and his ERA is north of 5. And the Mets had a 5-run lead. Well, this guy gives up more than 5 runs every time he pitches. So, would seem to make sense that the Mets would lose that game. And then I think they were just so depressed they didn't really come out with the same energy in the second game. So I think that's kind of a blip on the radar. I don't really think the Yankees turned it around. Aaron Hicks went on the IL after the game. After the first game, excuse me, it was a doubleheader on Sunday between the Mets and Yankees. So another player goes to the IL. Honestly, Higgins, between these two teams, their ILs would make the playoffs. I mean,
The list's long.
the Rays have 9, 10 pitchers on that list. The Yankees have Stanton, Judge, Hicks, LeMahieu. It goes on and on and on.
Torres.
Yeah. So we may not know too many people on the field tomorrow, but I'm going to bet on the Rays. The Rays are the top team in the AL East right now. And I just don't believe the Yankees really turned it around. I think they got lucky. They got to face Edwin Diaz.
Well, the over under for this game is 7.5, so we will see if the bats show up or if these marginalized lineups because of the IL are going to turn this into a pitcher's duel. If it's a pitcher's duel, I like that my money's on Garrett Cole here, so we'll see how that ends up. But we only had 4 games with lines of the 11 MLB games that are going on Monday. This is Sunday night as we're recording, Brett. Do you think a lot of that has to do with the trade deadline and what's up in the air with tomorrow?
That's honestly a really good point, Higgins, and something I didn't fully consider as to why the lines may not be out, but that could be part of it. I think another part might just be there were some games going on as we started putting our rundown together, so maybe they weren't sure if everything was finished. You know, a guy may get injured, someone may get ejected, something may happen. So you just want to wait and see see what happens with all the games that were going on.
I agree. There is also a Flyers Islanders game going on right now that I'm trying to pay attention to. When we started recording, it was a 1-0 game for the Islanders, so hopefully the Flyers can bring that back. But let's jump into our NHL now, Brett, because we have Boston Bruins versus the Tampa Bay Lightning on Monday, and Tampa Bay had a very strong game on Saturday. So I'm going to be riding with Tampa, but my money's not there yet. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, so I'm taking the over at 5.5.
Yeah, I like that overplay. I could definitely see this being a 3-2 game, but with an empty netter, 4-2, that over hits. Um, I'm actually going the opposite way of you, Higgins. I like Boston fighting for their season. This was a team that had the most points in the East going into that little round robin tournament. Now, they ended up being the fourth seed after that round robin tournament, so maybe they haven't played so great in the bubble, but I just think there's too much talent on Boston, and they looked like a really strong team throughout the year, and I expect with their season on the line for them to show up.
Monday also includes a Dallas Stars versus Colorado Avalanche game. That line is not out though, but Dallas leads Colorado 3-1 in that. So both of these matchups are game 5 with a 3-1 advantage for one of the teams. It'll be interesting to see if a game 6 is forced or if we are going to have some quick turnarounds in this expanded playoff format that the NHL is doing.
Yeah, it'll definitely be something to keep an eye on, and elimination games always get a little more attention from me. I don't know about you.
Hey, because it's the Cup, I love watching playoff hockey. Personally, it's
Yeah.
my favorite. The tension in the air, you can just feel it. It's great. So I'll definitely be watching at least one of those games, if not both of them, on Monday. Um, some news out of the NFL as that season is quickly approaching, Brett. I mean, we talked about some fantasy football stuff last week, but it's really right around the corner.
I mean, we're like 10 days out. Or I guess 11 days out when we're recording, but 10 days out when you're listening. And I'm excited. I mean, it really feels like it didn't feel like football without training camp and preseason, but the last 2 weeks, it's finally started to feel like football season.
It has. I am worried about injuries and the impact that those can have due to the lack of contact that there was through practices and uh, without there being preseason games. But we'll see. You can get injured in a preseason game just like you can get injured in week one. That doesn't really matter where you are in football. The danger is always there. But there have been some interesting moves going on. Yannick Ngakoue was traded from the Jaguars to the Vikings. Now, we've already known this name was on the trading block for the Jaguars, but he's going to be heading up north.
Yeah, no, and he took a pay cut to leave Jacksonville, which I think caught everyone by surprise because he didn't want to play for that franchise tag in Jacksonville. Uh,
Yeah, I feel bad for Leonard Fournette, who still seems to be the only Jaguar that's left from this team that showed a lot of potential when they made it to the playoffs a few years ago.
but speaking of the money, have you seen him in training camp with the $100 bill on his pads?
No, I did not see that. That's great, though.
Yeah, he's just been running around with $100 taped to his back. But someone who's not been able to run around due to injury, the Eagles' first round pick, Jalen Rieger, will be out 3 to 4 weeks. They already have Alshon Jeffrey on the injured reserve list. So the Eagles down two wide receivers for Carson Wentz. I guess Deshaun Jackson's going to be playing a big role in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I saw Chad Johnson sharing some videos of Deshaun Jackson's training camp, and he looks sharp. He looks good. And the Giants secondary already saw some injuries as well, with Xavier McKinney breaking his foot. So he's going to be out until late November, it's looking like at least. But the Giants, they also got Danny Holmes hurt. Blake Martinez, the linebacker out of Green Bay that they just signed, that's hurt. The Giants' defense looking banged up before they even take the field.
Yeah, the Eagles are down two linemen, so maybe it's just a bad trend in the NL East or NFC East.
Well, some college football news. Jamar Chase, the wideout out of LSU, he announced he's going to sit out and enter the draft. Now, we all know Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver that got drafted out of LSU this past year. Well, Jefferson made his name late because in the playoffs he caught 4 touchdowns in a first half, I believe, against Oklahoma. But Jamar Chase had more touchdowns caught on the season than Jefferson did. Chase is a very talented wide receiver in his own right, so him sitting out is pretty notable.
Yeah, I think Jamar Chase will still be the first wide receiver taken in the draft next year in the NFL draft. That is, um, Micah Parsons was a big name to sit out, but the Big Ten is questionable on when their season's going to start or what's going on. I mean, there's talks of a bubble, potentially even in Syracuse, which Illinois versus Iowa at the Carrier Dome. You know, like nothing says Big Ten football like that.
Maryland Rutgers.
Maryland Rutgers. I mean, at least Rutgers has been to the Carrier Dome. When's the last time? I don't know. Guess Wisconsin's been to the Carrier Dome. I mean, there's a lot of other
Probably for
options.
basketball.
Yeah, man, just basketball. There's a lot of other options on the table, including Indianapolis, Detroit. So you never know where they're going to end up or what they're going to end up doing. But Jamar Chase, easily in my mind, the biggest name to opt out of the college football season. And from the biggest conference, he plays for LSU in the SEC, like you mentioned. So that's a big, big, big name to announce that he is not comfortable with playing this year.
And the SEC is still playing. The LSU, I assume, has players and students on their campus now. So, very interesting decision for him to decide to sit out when there was an option for him to have a season. But his tape is already by far and away NFL ready. I agree. I think he's still going to be that first quarterback that is, or first wide receiver that is taken off the board.
Fuck it,
It'll
we'll
be
take him
interesting
to
though.
play quarterback.
Some Antoine Randall L type stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's jump into the Levy lock and hit, pick of the pod, though. Brett, I told you I think OKC is going to force a game 7, and I'm confident enough to make it my pick of the pod. Plus 200. I just. Shea Gilgis Alexander has played phenomenally. The guards over at OKC have just played phenomenally overall. And even though Russell Westbrook's back, that one game of adjustment that it took from game 5, I think we're going to see a different Thunder team come out that scores more than the 80 points that they did on Saturday and makes it a game. I definitely think that this 6 points is way too large. So if you don't like the money line as much as I do, take the OKC plus 6. But I think OKC is going to force a game 7.
Okay, and my Levy lock is going to be Twins on the money line. I'm going against Lucas Giolito, who again threw a no hitter last time out. Like you said, he threw a shutout against Detroit, but this is another level of a baseball team. No disrespect to Detroit or Pittsburgh, and that whip is just too high to be facing this Twins lineup, in my opinion.
Just over 1.
I mean, you know, that's a base runner an inning, Higgins, and you know what the old saying is in baseball: a bloop and a bang, and the Twins could definitely do that.
Absolutely. So we will see how that turns out. We'll also see where that line comes out because that line isn't available to us as we are recording this. So we'll make sure to have a social media post that specifies what line Brett did get Twins money line at. Make sure to follow us at Next Best Bet on Instagram, at NBB Pod on Twitter, and the Next Best Next Best Bet Facebook page to make sure you get all of our posts in between our episodes. This has been episode 72 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.